My husband, who's in the middle of a sommelier class, explained to me today why the accepted normal pour of a glass of wine is 6 ounces. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not gonna work for me. Hey y'all, I'm Stephanie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do my January wrap up. I read 12 books this month and I am dang proud. So I'm going to start by telling you what books I read and what they were about and my star rating for them. And then I will break down like the formatting of all of the books that I read. The first book that I read for the month of January was The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. Now, I almost didn't pick this book up. I almost just was like, no thanks, I'm cool. Because everything was just, meh. It was just okay, you know? But I don't know, something told me like, no, let's give Nicola Yoon another shot, try it out, see how you feel about it. And I'm so glad that I did because this book is so much better. It follows a girl named Natasha who is a Jamaican girl. Her father moved over from Jamaica to the States and tried to like get himself settled before he brought the rest of the family over. And now they're being deported because her dad was arrested for drunk driving and she's freaking out because this is her home. She doesn't want to go back to a place that she barely remembers. She's trying to find any way that she can to state her case to make it so that she and her family can stay stateside. Along the way, she meets a boy named Daniel, who is the son of a very traditional South Korean family. They want him to go to school to be a doctor, but he would rather be a poet. It's just the cutest little story. And I mean, it's cute, but there's also like a heavier element present, which is part of what I think makes the book so good. I gave the book a 4 out of 5 stars, which is pretty dang good. It's really, really rare for me to give a 5-star rating. I feel like we need to discuss that actually. I very rarely give a 5-star book. 5 stars, like 5 out of 5 stars, to me is like a perfect book. So that's hard, that's fucking hard to do. And just because I really like a book doesn't mean I'm gonna give it 5 stars, and maybe that's like a flaw with me, but you know what? It's my thing, so be it. What that means though is if I give something a 4 or 4.5 stars, I really liked that book. It was a really good book. If I give something a half-star rating, I generally round up on Goodreads because they don't allow half stars, which is like the bane of my existence. Let me have half stars, dang it. I've never given a book a 1-star review because odds are if it's going to be a 1-star book for me, I just DNF'd that motherfucker. If I liked a book but it's not going to be like one of my favorite books, I'm like 3.5, I guess. I don't want to have to round up, damn it. Goodreads, give me half stars. Ugh. I digress. Just so that you have a sense of my personal rating scale, that's how I think and how my brain works. The second book that I read in January was Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too by Jomini Sun. This is a little graphic novel based on a Twitter account. I love aliens, I love graphic novels, I love having a book that you can relate to because you don't feel like you fit in, and that's exactly what this book was. It was just a super adorable graphic novel version of like, hey, here are some bits of wisdom and solidarity for people that don't feel like they fit in. It was really super cute. This is one that like I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars to, so on Goodreads I rounded up to a 4. I probably wouldn't buy the book. I checked mine out from Overdrive and read it that way and don't feel like a compulsion to own it, but I'm also really glad that I read it. The next book that I read for January, if you watched my reading and channel goals, I wanted to make an effort to read more nonfiction this year. and I started that off with a bang. The first nonfiction book that I read was Cannibalism, A Natural History by Bill Shutt, who's like, this is exactly what it sounds like. It was a nonfiction book about cannibalism in the natural world, so other species where cannibalism takes place, cannibalism in tribes that are untouched by Western culture, and it kind of discusses like the different variations of cannibalism and the purpose behind each one of them. It was a very scientific approach to cannibalism. It does not talk about criminal cannibalism at all, and which is something that I really appreciate, because if I'm being honest, like, cannibalism creeps me out, gives me the heebie-jeebies, just but if it's any testament to how good this book was, I was able to finish it, and pretty quickly too. I easily gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. As far as like nonfiction books go, A++, really well done, super informative. I learned a lot, including that apparently the closest thing that human flesh tastes like is pork, and all I have to say about that is thank goodness I wasn't a big pork eater to begin with. Blech. Blech. Oh, also, this book also touches on the way that Columbus in his travels, after he discovered the United States, he was traveling elsewhere, and in order to sort of like give himself a reason, or like to give Spain a reason to take over these colonies, was by basically being like, well, they're heathens and they are disgusting and they eat each other. There's this crazy, violent, cannibalistic tribe, and that's not okay. We should definitely take over and teach them our good Christian ways. There's an entire, like, couple of chapters that explores that whole fucked up situation. It was just so interesting, and if that sounds like something that you're vaguely interested in, you should definitely check it out. I was able to grab the ebook of this during like the first week or two after Christmas. Kindle was like dropping mad sales, I guess because everybody and their brother gets a new Kindle for Christmas, like I did. And so I was on top of all those Kindle sales. I bought this book for $2.17, and it was easily the best $2.17 book I've ever bought. The next book that I read was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I've already talked about this book a couple of times. It's all the heck over YouTube, BookTube right now. It's just so good. If you've been around my channel for a while, I've been here for like 6 months. If you've been here from the beginning, you've heard me mention on multiple occasions how much I fucking love Holly Black. I knew this shit was gonna be good, and lo and behold, it was fucking amazing. I'm gonna actually tell you about the book now. The Cruel Prince is about a girl named Jude who has a sister and a half-sister. Their mother is killed by her first husband. They are taken back to the Fae world, and then they are raised basically in the same fashion that all Fae children are raised. The only problem here is she is not Fae. She and her sister are not Fae. Jude just kind of wants to, like, she just wants power. She wants to, because they take, like I said, they're treated like Fae children. They go to the same school as all these other Fae kids that are roughly their age, like, you know, like teenager whatevers. But they're looked down on. Like, they're not seen as, even though they've been raised as Fae, they're not seen as the equivalent of Fae. They're still mortal, and they are still looked down on for being mortal. Jude just wants to be like them, or be better than them is really what she wants, but she knows how hard that is. So she is presented an opportunity to put herself in a place of power at some point in the future, in the near future. So she takes this opportunity, finds herself in like a secret spy ring, and then there is a bunch of shit that goes down. And I won't talk about specifics on that because spoilers. The 5th book that I read this month, whoa, the wine is kicking in, you guys. The 5th book that I read this month was Killers of the Flower Moon, The Osage Murders, and the Beginning of the FBI by David Graham. I have a lot of feelings about this, but this is, buckle up, y'all, because this is gonna be a ride. This whole book, can you guys hear the wind on that window? Like the wind is, ooh, it's very creepy. Anyway, Killers of the Flower Moon is about the Osage Native American tribe and how in the 1920s they made a deal basically with the US government that said, okay, look, we want to keep our land, but I understand that you guys basically aren't going to let us do that. You're trying to shove us on a reservation. Here's the deal though. We'll agree to that if we get to keep the mineral rights to all the land. And the US government was like, deal, cool, you can have the mineral rights, whatever, but like you're gonna live in this secluded area. And they were like, sure, okay. Lo and behold, someone strikes oil. The Osage people own the mineral rights and get rich AF off of this shit. Like rich as fuck, dude. And they also have it set up so that they cannot buy or sell these rights. You can only inherit them, right? What happens is these people, these Osage people, start marrying white people who are now like part of the family and are entitled to these rights when their spouse dies. So they start marrying all these white people and then they start mysteriously dying. It takes way too fucking long for somebody to figure out that this is shady. Eventually, the very beginnings of the FBI are brought in to investigate it like undercover and find out that this is like a whole thing that it's not, at first they thought that it might be like one person, but it's definitely not one person. It's like one person came up with the idea and, you know, like generic white people do, they just like kept taking that idea and doing more and more terrible, awful, horrible things. People were shot. People were like, had their throats slit. People were literally like bombed in their own homes in the middle of the night. Dogs. I'm trying to have a serious conversation. The point is, this was an intensely wild and disgusting story, by which I mean humans are disgusting in the acts that they are willing to perform for money. I listened to this on audiobook, which I also highly recommend if you have the ability. David Grant, who was a journalist before he wrote this book for, I want to say the New York Times, but don't hold me to that. Didn't make that note, and I've also had some drinks. But it reads almost like a novel. Like when it reads like, it's a nonfiction that reads like fiction, which I don't know if that like helps harshen the blow of how fucked up people in real life really are or not actually, or if it's just, you're like, because that's how I was. I was very like, people are the worst. And just when, like every time you tell yourself people are the worst and you think you genuinely believe it, you read this book and then you're like, no, but really though, people, like the human race is the fucking worst. 4.5 out of 5 stars. 4.5 out of 5. The next book I read in January is Landline by Rainbow Rowell. So I read this book and I have a lot of feelings about it, and I'll tell you when I come back from a pee-pee break, because I gotta pee. Because fine. Done, son. Landline, Rainbow Rowell. This book gave me a lot of feelings. Those feelings were not... I'm so sorry. The wind is so aggressive. This book gave me a lot of feelings. They were not good feelings, but not in the like, this book is not good kind of way, if that makes any sense. So this book is about a woman named Georgie whose husband and her 2 children, they're like, all of them as a family are supposed to go to her in-laws house in some, I forget what Midwestern state. They all live in California. She's a writer on a television show, and she's presented with the opportunity to finally have her own show become a reality. It's supposed to be her big break. She's stoked on it, so she tells her husband, I know it's Christmas, I'm really sorry, take the kids, you go see your parents. I'm gonna stay here and work on my show because this is such a big opportunity for me and blah 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 blah. So he goes and leaves, and then gradually things start to work out so that like she never catches him on the phone at the right time. Basically it seems like he's avoiding talking to her, and she starts panicking. She spends a little more time at her parents' house while they're gone because she doesn't want to go home to her empty house when all of her family is gone. And she comes across her old phone from when she was in like high school and college, which is when she first started dating her now husband. Turns out this old like landline phone that she has is linked to the past, and she gets to talk to her husband circa when they were dating before they got married. I wanted to like this book because I know Chelsea loves it and rereads it around Christmas time every year. And like I said, I'm not saying that it wasn't good, but I'm saying that it made me not feel good. And like I'm in a healthy marriage, like not to brag, but like my marriage is a healthy one, and this made me feel so fucking uncomfortable. Georgie is selfish as fuck. Like I thought about censoring myself there, but no, I can't, because she is selfish as fuck. I hate Georgie. To me, this was such a frustrating book to read because the solution seemed so simple to me in my mind. I cannot ever imagine being like, yeah, I know this is what I really want to do, and there's a good chance that I'll lose my husband, but like I'm gonna do it anyway. Like, nah, bitch. Now I'm gonna get really sappy for a second. My husband is my world. Like, there is nothing that I can imagine in this world that would come before him ever. So this fucking book was just so stupid to me. If your spouse is not your number 1 person, why the fuck did you get married? You shouldn't have even been married. Ugh, get out of here. That being said, I didn't hate it. It was actually a really good book because I also acknowledge that a lot of the problems that I had with it were like personal problems, and objectively it was a decent book. I gave it a 3 out of 5, which I think I rounded up to 4 on Goodreads, and now that I'm sitting here talking about it, I'm mad about it and I want to go and bump it back down to a 3. The next book that I read in January was a trade paperback of the Darth Maul comics. Hey, did you know that I have a Star Wars book club? If you didn't know that, now you do. I will leave the link to my full review with my buddy Claire for you to peruse at your leisure. And we're back. Okay, so what are we, like halfway through? Yeah, we're like halfway through. Buckle in for section 2, bitches, because I have a lot of feelings about these books as well. The next few books that I read were The Diviners, Lair of Dreams, and Before the Devil Breaks You, all by Libba Bray, also known as the Diviners series. Let me stress the word series, because somehow I had in my head that this was a trilogy. I bought the paperback of The Diviners one day for like crazy cheap, like $3 or something. And I obviously, like, I bought it because like I was like, I know I'm gonna like this, I'll read it eventually, and it sat on my TBR shelf for like a stupid long time. But I finally picked it up and I read it and then was fucking obsessed. And so I immediately was like, well, I have to read the next one. So I checked out Lair of Dreams from Overdrive. On Twitter, she tells me, do you follow me on Twitter? You should. I'll link down below. On Twitter, Kelsey tells me, hey, I've heard that the audiobooks for these are really good. So I'm like, cool. This is like after I finished The Diviners, before I started Lair of Dreams. So she was like, I've heard the audiobooks are really good. You should check out the audiobook. And I was like, yeah, no, I'll do that for the next one for sure. Do it. I was in the car listening to Lair of Dreams. I wish I could remember what chapter it was. Something about soldiers. At like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And had to actually like turn it off because it creeped me out so bad. In the middle of the day. I couldn't do it. I couldn't listen to it anymore. I was like, gotta take a break and listen to some classic rock for a second. Moving on. No, I didn't tell you what The Diviners... Do you not know what The Diviners is about? I don't know. Google it. Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is another thing. I knew that Chelsea was looking for recommendations that were similar to The Hating Game. And then I also remember seeing people say that she needed to read Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I don't think that it was like in relation to the two things. Like those were not the same thing. But in my head I made them the same thing. So I went into Maybe in Another Life in the mindset that this was going to be like a contemporary romance that is fluffy and adorable and maybe a little like witty banter thrown in. No, I was so wrong. Like the synopsis for this book is, what is this girl's name? I don't even know. I didn't like, can we take a break for me to show you guys things? Is this video gonna be too hecking long? These are the notes for the first part of this video. These are my notes for this. This just Maybe in Another Life, Taylor Jenkins Reid. I borrowed the ebook from Overdrive and I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Spoiler alert. So anyway, I was expecting like a marshmallow contemporary romance and that is not what the fuck I got. It's basically the story of this girl named Hannah. I think her name was Hannah. Was her name Hannah? So Hannah kind of like jumps around from city to city trying to find like the place that she's gonna call home, where she feels like she fits in. She graduated college and still has no idea what the fuck she's gonna do with her life. Like you do. So she just is kind of like hopping around from city to city, and she is dating this guy, and then she finds out that he's married and everything starts falling apart. She decides to move back to her hometown of Los Angeles. She moves in with her best friend, and then she goes out for like the first time since she moved back home is like her big like welcome home deal, where she meets up with a lot of like her best friends in the area, and then also a lot of their friends from high school before she moved, and she meets up with her high school boyfriend. And then from this point the story splits, right? And it alternates chapters between if she decides to stay at the party with her high school boyfriend or she decides to go home with her best friend. And you follow the different storylines. It's like alternate universe kind of situation. It was just, I cried so freaking much during this book. I cried so much. And finally, the last book that I read for January, because I thought that Maybe in Another Life was going to be marshmallowy, and then it was not. I picked up a book that I knew for a fact was going to be marshmallowy. When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon. This book is exactly what I was looking for in the moment. It was a floofy, contemporary, very marshmallow sweetness, just so stinking cute. So it is about an Indian American girl whose family is super traditional and is trying to like push her to get married and have babies, and she's like, excuse you, I'm 18 years old, I'm not ready for this. And a boy named Rishi, who is also like in a similar situation, except he's very like traditional in his own right, where he's like, I want to make my parents happy and want to do what they tell me, and like I understand that that's the whole thing, like that's what we're supposed to do, like you're supposed to get married and have babies, that's the point of life. It's kind of where he's coming from. Their parents come together and kind of try to make an arranged marriage, so that's like the conditions that they meet under. Except Rishi plus this little heart is like, hey, so we're getting married, right? And she's like, I literally have no idea what you're talking about. It's just so stinking cute. And I have the biggest like fictional boy crush on Rishi. He's fucking adorable and so kind. I gave it a 3.5 stars, which I rounded up to 4 on Goodreads if you follow me on Goodreads. Cute, 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 cute. The end. I love you. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe if you liked this video, because this is basically how they all are. I get drunk and I talk about books. Did you know that? You didn't know that? Cool, that's what I do. Bye, y'all.